Hello. Welcome to our third annual Lunch and Learn Goal Setting Workshop. I'm Megan Ross, Seed&Spark's Head of Creator Success, and here I
And
have,
hello, hello. I am Bree Castellini, Seed&Spark's Manager of Creator Success.
and we're joined by our wonderful ASL interpreter, Joe, who will be making our event more accessible today from the American Sign Language Company. We'd first like to acknowledge the land we are all on is occupied territory. Please check the YouTube live comments feed for a link to a First Nations COVID relief fund and an amazing app that will tell you exactly whose land you are currently watching from, or in the video description if you're watching this as a VOD. I am coming to you from the land originally belonging to Jamanos, Tonkawa, and Coahuitecan and Comanche. I actually came across a street name and I was like, I know that. I know that. I looked it up. If you're not familiar with Seed&Spark, we are a platform built to support creators by providing tools for wherever you are in your journey, from crowdfunding and education to impact programming. And today we will be taking you through our very highly praised goal setting workbook. We have a little bit of
Five
a
stars.
change to this year, 5 stars. So you should have in the chat, I know Frankie's going to be sharing the link in case you didn't receive it. So what you can do is duplicate that document and start filling out as we go through all the sections. And also something to keep in mind, you don't have to fill out all the sections. Make it work for you.
Yeah, the idea with this workshop is very much to show you a bunch of different options for how to set goals and intentions, creative, personally, professionally for the upcoming year. So we show you kind of everything. You don't have to love everything. Pick what feels right to you and what is going to work with what you are hoping to accomplish this year, and do it along with us so that we can keep each other accountable and be excited about the cool years that we're all setting up together.
Yeah, and Bree and I will share what we've filled out to give it a little inside look, and maybe y'all can hold us accountable and call us out 6 months from now. Be like, you're not calling your family once a month.
Yeah, Megan has to log every time she calls her family. She has to tweet so that we can all watch it happen and be sure that it's happening. Otherwise, we will call her family for her. That's how this works, right? That's what accountability means.
Yes, that's accountability.
All right, I think we're good to start the actual workshop now and get started. Let's set some goals.
My favorite thing to
So
do.
love setting goals, hate following through.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the first style of goal setting is called mind mapping. So a mind map is a hierarchical information display that encourages free association. Basically, it's free writing, but in like a cool visual way. So the idea with this first exercise with mind mapping is to not hold back. Anything that comes to mind as we show you some sample categories, write it down. It might be silly or strange to you. You might be like, where did that come from? We're not judging right now. We're just writing everything down. It's going to seem like a lot, but don't get overwhelmed. We are just ideating. We're just thinking what comes to mind. And don't worry about revising either. You're going to hone and prioritize this information later. The goal with mind mapping is simply to get everything out of up here into the page so that we can start prioritizing and moving forward. So what might your mind map look like? Well, let's start at the very center. The center of your map, and the thing that we're going to be branching off of is, what is your ideal life, year, month, week, or day? Maybe you want to start small and just say, what do I want today to look like? But for the purposes of this workshop, we're going to assume that this is your 2023, your ideal 2023. So the first spoke of your map might be your personal health journey. What do you want your ideal personal health to look like by the end of 2023, both in the mental health realm and the physical health realm? I'm a person who has injured my same ankle 3 times in 3 months recently. Feels really bad. So one of the first things that I wrote down on my mind map was, get that under control so you can walk normal again. So I went to the doctor on Monday. It was a harrowing experience, but I did it. And now I have several follow-ups, but I'm making progress towards my physical health. So that's a win in my book. Megan, do you have any mental or physical health journeys that you might mind map?
Yeah, not as good as sprain ankle 3 less times, but, mental health, gotta maintain that, so I feel like it's not really a goal because it's what I do anyway, but I commit to continuing therapy twice a month, and then trying to work out as I feel needed and not in a pressury way. I think the first year we did this, I said my fitness goal was Michelle Obama arms. Um, so I like to have goals like that. That's less, reflective of the pressures of society to
Right.
look like a piece of paper as a woman.
Yeah. Fit into size 2, like, that kind of stuff
Yeah.
is not probably going to be good. But remember, this is also not even about, like, writing down specific goals, it's more just, like, what are the things that come to mind about your current mental or physical health?
Hmm.
We can start setting more structure around those just sort of thoughts, those
Hmm.
free association thoughts, a little bit later. So moving on to our next category, personal relationships. As we already know, Megan needs to call her family more. This
And
terrible, terrible daughter.
I actually removed it from this year because I was like, it's not going to happen.
You
Like I
already
learned from
know.
past years, I'm like, part of my mental health bucket is protecting my mental health. So,
We're getting vulnerable on the timeline today, folks. But are there things in your personal relationships, be them family, friends, or romantic, that are things that you want to work on this year? Things that you want to, think about, change, evolve? That might go here. What does your ideal life look like this year in regards to personal relationships? Next up, personal development. So things like hobbies or non-work education. For some of you may know this, last year I went on a bit of a book bender. I read 366 books
wow.
last year,
Oh my god, a
which
book a day? A book
yeah,
a day
two
on
on
a
one of
leap
those
year
days. In this economy.
in this economy?
But yeah, that kind of happened out of nowhere. And while that was wonderful, and I really enjoyed getting back into reading as a hobby, a lot of the other hobbies that I cultivated as of our 2021 goal setting workshop kind of fell by the wayside. So this year, one of mine was I want to get back into my other hobbies without losing steam on books. So I've started to listen to more audiobooks so that I could continue doing gardening and painting and the other hobbies that I curated earlier. So this year for me, it's about balancing my hobbies rather than hyper fixating on one category and then leaving everything else by the wayside.
That sounds like a very healthy approach.
Hmm.
That I don't know what that's like.
Well, what comes to mind for you with hobbies, Megan?
Well, so I actually was the opposite of you last year in terms of books. And I love reading and I love buying books and I love accumulating them on my bedside stand. So this year I was like, I am reading at least one book a month, like start baby steps. And not just books that I'm reading for like a script prep.
Sure.
I already finished one. I mean, in an unhealthy way, I finished one book in like 2 nights because I couldn't sleep, and it was a great book, so I already finished my January goal.
Congrats. Yeah, and to be clear, we've been very intentional so far about not even talking about work yet in terms of what
Mhm,
our ideal years look like, because I think that they're, especially for creatives where like our hobbies and our work are very intertwined, there is this compulsion to sort of double up everything you do. If I'm going to do something social, it better also be networking and productive towards my career. Or if I'm going to do a hobby, I better be able to write a script about it. And while sometimes inspiration strikes, it's probably more healthy to give yourself a break occasionally. You'll find you're probably going to be a lot happier and more creative that way.
mhm.
So moving on to the other kind of aspects that may appear on your mind map, things like career and jobs, of course, we got to put that on there. We have to make money to be part of society. any activism or public service that you'd like to be doing, community activism and things like that, and any financial goals or realities that you might want to manifest into existence. All of these things and more may or may not appear on your 2023 mind map. But again, the goal is simply to write down everything that comes to mind about what the ideal perfect year would look like, so that next you can start circling items that you really want to focus on, because you are human. I know some of us don't like to believe that we're human, but we
What?
are.
We're
And
not
it's
bots?
fine. And it's valid, Megan Ross, to be a human.
What?
Not that I'm calling anyone out in particular here, but try to circle 3 or 4 items on this mind map. Maybe diversify the categories, maybe not. Maybe you really just want to focus on hobbies this year or whatever, and jot down a line or two of what you'd like that area of your life to look like in the next year. So this is about just prioritizing all of the random thoughts in your head. So some tips for prioritizing as you guys are circling things on your mind map. Of course, you can't focus on everything, so make sure to acknowledge that you need concrete and aspirational goals. Think about areas you're already doing well in versus areas that you know you can improve in. Do not ignore the mental health area. This is for all of us. For me, it's hyperfixating on books, but you might have a healthier way of dealing with your mental health, and that's awesome for you. Maybe take that knitting class, even if you're not making a knitting film. This is once again a reminder, sometimes things can just be fun, or they can just be beneficial to your life in the moment. Not everything has to be about making progress in a career or financial goal, and that's okay. And also, your goals might look different from other years, and that's also okay. If you guys have followed like the Brie character arc from the past 3 years that we've done this workshop, you will see a marked improvement in my disposition, because very intentionally every year I started to try and take more and more time to myself that had nothing to do with work and had nothing to do with my creative aspirations. And I genuinely feel so much better because I very specifically over the course of a couple of years slowly took the steps that I needed to build a life that I was happy with, by taking a little bit more time off, by focusing a little bit more time on hobbies. And I call them non-monetizable hobbies, because that's important. I know what my behavior is going to do, and it's going to try to monetize everything, but no, I'm not doing that. I'm just doing things because I like it. And I'm here to tell you, it's so much better. It's so much better. So yeah, it's okay if your year looks different. It's okay if you need to take a step back or things look worse. Definitely, there is a darkness before the light, but give yourself a break. This is just about being realistic with yourself, not about judging yourself.
It's also okay for your goals to change mid-year, because you can be like, hey, I need a break from all of these things. So these are going to be my goals or my priorities for the first 6 months of the year. And then the second half of the year, you could be like, okay, now I have the energy to work on this thing that I put off.
Totally. Yeah. And
Okay.
I think our workbook that hopefully you guys are filling out as we do this, I think our workbook has a structure, like a aspirational accountability structure that's like every 3 months or so, look through the goals that you set. Do these still seem good? Do these still seem related to what you want to be doing? Are they making you happy? Or do we need to make some changes? So build that into your schedule. We have a comment from Brucers. Brucer says, my goals have definitely changed, and realizing for myself and the things I want to create was very beneficial to my health and mind versus being focused on work all the time. I love that for you, Brucers. I'm delighted to hear that. And yeah, guys, be commenting. I want to hear about how your years are
Yeah,
going and what you're thinking. What are you
that
mind
is.
mapping? What are your priorities so far?
I know Brewster's isn't the only one thinking about their goals right now. So I'm just assuming everyone is very busy handwriting in their workbook.
That's true. But I would prefer them to be busy while talking to us.
Yeah, I know.
You can do
I
both.
I get lonely when I don't see
I
any
know.
comments come through.
I know. The only person I have to talk to right now is Megan, and she doesn't even call her family. So how can I
Yeah,
really trust her?
can't. You can't. Oh
Um,
man. I remember this tweet.
The evergreen viral tweet that's now 2 years old, but unfortunately just as relevant.
Yeah,
Be realistic.
be realistic.
Moving on. So now we've moved on to the second kind of goal setting. It can be complementary to mind mapping. It can be entirely separate from mind mapping. Maybe this one vibes with you better than the last one. Who knows? So this is called start, stop, continue, which is a way of like not only thinking about what new things you want to implement in your life, but things that you want to carry over or not from previous years of your life. So taking it one priority at a time. What are the things that you want to start doing, begin doing in service of a particular goal of yours? What are things that you want that you're currently doing that are not furthering your goal? That's what the stop is. And what are things that you want to continue, things that are going pretty well already that you're going to stay the course on? So, Megan, can you think of a particular goal of yours for this year that you might want to do a start, stop, continue for?
Yeah, I hate to bring it back to like creative work because I had to do this start, stop, continue for my writers group. So I'm trying to remember offhand. I think I said start. Nope. Let me look it up because I was like, yeah, I think I literally was changing it like every week, leading up to our goals. So let me find that.
Well, thankfully,
Um,
Greg P is going to vamp for you. So,
oh,
Greg P's
nice,
goals are so far to spend more time with family and friends. Wow, you're a much better person than
nice,
Megan.
much
Get
better.
better, get better at my hobbies, which includes hockey, horse riding, and the gym. Wow, this person's making me feel terrible about myself. It sounds awesome for you, Greg P. Get a new agent supporting in a TV or lead in a feature. Very cool. So we've got a good mix of personal, hobby, and professional. Very exciting. And Denise says that they're seeing a lot of their goals overlap. That's awesome. That
Nice.
means that you can be making progress on a bunch of things at once, and also that you have a very focused thing that you want to do this year. So that's
So I
actually
pulled
good.
up, I found my goals, and
Okay,
so I had
hit us.
written these at like midnight or 1 a.m. after a big rejection that I was supposed to, that I thought I would get. And so start outreach and network with production companies, stop relying on institutions, and continue tracking my industry meetings and contacts. I have this little tracker where I keep tabs on who I've talked to, what we talked about, etc. But
Very
stop relying
cool.
on institutions. That's a big subtweet.
Yeah. People who shall not, institutions that shall not be named, who frankly didn't deserve her in the first place.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll not be
Uh,
calling them monthly either.
all right. So now we've got yet another way of setting goals or prioritizing the goals that you've already started to set. This is called the SMART method. This is a way of honing your goals to make sure that they are actually achievable and things that like you can make progress towards rather than just like setting them and feeling bad about yourself in 6 months. So SMART acronym is first, is this goal specific? Why this goal and not another? Who is involved in your success? Like, is it something that you personally control, or is this something that there are other stakeholders for that you need other people's buy in for? What are the variables in achieving this goal? Be specific about what exactly you want to achieve here. Next is measurable. What is the success metric? How can you be sure that you are successful at this goal? Feel better is not a really great measurable goal because what does better mean? What are the stakes of
What does
better?
feel mean?
What does feel mean? Who
What's it
are
mean?
feelings?
What's it like to feel?
Oh, we our twice monthly therapy session needs to happen offline, Megan, please. I'm working here. How will you and others be able to tell that the goal has been completed? What are perhaps milestones or benchmarks along the way that you can mark? So, like in 3 months, this is what I want to have happen. In 6 months, in 12 months, can you measure this goal? If not, probably needs a rephrasing. Next is attainable. Is this goal realistic based on your existing resources, like your time, money, energy, location, etc.? Like, I would also like to get on Greg P's level, but I'm going to be honest, there's no way I can. So it's important that I don't just say, I want Greg P's life. That's not an attainable goal. But perhaps aspects of Greg P's life that I covet are achievable for me. So, maybe I want to start a little bit smaller without overwhelming myself. Set yourself up for success as that is. Relevant. Is this goal the first goal to achieve on your map or a future goal after achieving some closer ones? So, for instance, would love to get a new agent like Greg P is doing this year. I'm sorry, Greg P. You just like are living the ideal life, and I love that for you.
Hmm.
But I don't currently have an agent. So, getting an agent is maybe a little bit further along the process. Maybe I need to focus on something a little bit closer to home, like polishing my samples and starting to query a certain number of agents so that I know that I'm getting my work out there. That's a more relevant goal to me, even though I would love to be just like Mindy Kaling tomorrow. But that's probably not relevant or attainable. And though it is specific and measurable, SMART is the whole thing, not just one
Whole
or two of
shebang.
these. And then yes, Krupa, hashtag Team Greg for sure. Finally, time bound. When would you like this goal accomplished? What about the milestones? So this is obviously related to measurable, but make sure that it's not an open ended like I want this someday. It's like sure I want a lot of things someday, but it's hard to make progress towards a abstract concept rather than I want to do 3 things for this specific goal in the next 6 months. Like that's measurable, that's time bound, there is a success metric. And then after that time period has been completed, did you complete your goals? If not, you might need to change things up for the next period of time that you're doing this. Um, Really quickly, that we've got some more comments that I want to call out while we're doing this. So we got Brewster's back. My most recent goal is to get my Seed&Spark campaign up and running. Page is ready, working on the pitch video, and I also feel like I need to go over the Seed&Spark workshops like this one before submitting. Love that for you, Brewsters. Also, remember that you have the feedback process to go through still, so don't feel like you have to have a finished campaign by the time that you submit for feedback. In fact, I love it when people are a little bit more in draft form when they submit. Leave us little notes saying, "I'm not sure what should go here. Any ideas?" Question mark. You're obviously going to edit this before it goes live, so communicate with your feedback specialist through the page. Tell us where you're struggling. Tell us where you're not sure, and let us lend you our expertise. We also got Maiden Mars Studios. My challenge is having too many creative goals and desires and unable to prioritize, which leaves me with a lot of things started but unaccomplished, uncompleted. I hope this can help me. I also hope this can help you. This also might be a good case for splitting up your year into different segments. So like the first 3 months of the year, I'm going to work on my TV projects. That's it. If maybe if you're inspired by something else, you can go off and do that. But like for ideally these 3 months, we're going to focus on this project, then move on for the next 3 months, work on a different project. Like that might be a better way of doing it rather than saying pick two self. I don't know. Does
Yeah.
anyone have any ideas for helping prioritize creative goals?
Yes, a couple things here because um when I did my rewrite of my goals between December and January, well, one, I switched them because had listed like for my latest short film, I said I want to get into 9+ festivals. Like I want to beat my record from my first one. But I don't have any control over the festivals I get into. I am not the decision maker. So I changed that goal to be producing an impact screening tour with 4 to 5 fundraiser comedy shows because those screenings, the things that I produce, are within my control. So instead of worrying about what festivals I'm going to get into, because I don't know, like it's like getting a manager, I don't really have control over who says yes or no to me. Then I made it more reflective of something that I have control over. In terms of prioritizing, because I always have like a handful of projects at once, what I try to do is have them be in different phases. So I'm not writing 3 scripts or producing 3 shorts. So one of my projects is in distribution phase. One of my project is in like very early, like outline to script page. and another project is in pitch phase that I will eventually shoot later this year. And so I just try to make sure that I am not doing all the things at once and all the busy parts of one thing at once. And that helps me because I like pinpointed the three projects I really want to pursue, knowing that, one might fall to the wayside or one may take longer. And then I just sort of, look at the list below those three projects of what needs to get done within the first 3 months of the year, the next 3 months of the year, etc.
Very cool. And real quick, shout out to our friends at the Light Leaks, who usually co-host this session. They're just chilling in the comments this time, but we love them very much, and they're doing a lot of very cool stuff. So go check out the Light Leaks. All right. So this one's
Oh
Megan's
yeah.
slide. Take it away,
Yeah.
Megan.
This is what I like to call the anti-goals goal slide. If you couldn't tell, I love goals. I love goal setting, very type A. But after the end of last year, when I had two very big rejections that I was not expecting, I was motivated. A friend shared an article with me, which is linked. So I'm starting with the second bullet point on pursuing 100 rejections in 2023, because the idea behind that is that I am putting myself out there more. Not all of these will be like script competitions. I'm being mindful of my budget, but just, even like a cold email, a query. So the idea is that if you really strive for 100, it's hard to get 100 rejections. The odds are is that you're going to get a certain percentage of yeses. And so it'll probably be the one year that I'm hoping I'll have the most acceptances, because it'll be the year that I'm putting myself out there the most and hardening myself and getting used to these rejections, which is what the industry is really all about. Another really good example I found from another friend, Typewriter Tarot, which is if you're a creative and like a little witchy into tarot stuff, definitely check out her work. But she had a newsletter recently where she really talked about how the word success scared her and she hated like using that word or labeling herself successful. And so what she did was redefine what success meant to her, and she broke it down into 10 components uh, of of her definition of success, based on how you want to show up, not based on the results you think you need in order to determine your success or failure. So it's really more internally than like externally thinking like, oh, the industry expects that I have this many fellowships or this many shorts done or this many, but it's like, how do I actually want to show up in the work that I do, and in my personal life? So on page 7, there's some space for you to list the 10 components, the 10 elements of what you think success looks like to you this year. And then also there's a little tracker there for if you want to pursue the 100 rejections in one year, where you can log your wins, your losses, and then your shots that are still TBD. And shout out to my co-writer Shruti Saran, who actually shared that template with me and that concept. Because I was like, yeah, I could do 100. I could pursue rejections. Like I got some experience.
I am a reject. I will
I
I
am a
will make this
loser.
happen. Really quickly, I just want to shout out a question from Bowman Pictures about a good way to track industry contacts. The Light Leaks has some good comments in the chat, but I also shared a Google spreadsheet in the chat as well, which is an email list template that we have developed at Seed&Spark, ostensibly for a crowdfunding campaign, but you can also use it to track industry folks, because I definitely have had that problem too. The other thing that I will say, in addition to just like having some kind of permanent template that you can add to when you meet new people, when you go to events and you're doing the like classic business card swap, bring a Sharpie marker with you so that as soon as you finish talking to somebody and they've given you their card, write down the event that you're at. So, like, where did you meet this person on the card, as well as any like details from the conversation. So like, we talked about Star Trek for 10 minutes. This person has a film in an upcoming festival. That way, when you get home to update your spreadsheet or whatever system that you're using for organizing your industry connections, you have these like personal elements and are able to call out, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but we met at this festival, things like that. That way, when things are happening, you can let them happen, but you are also giving yourself a system to keep track of that in the future. But yes, definitely recommend that as a goal of getting better at tracking who the heck you're talking to.
Yes, I love that. I started tracking, I think in 2021, and not that a lot of these people still talk to me, but it's like, hey, when something comes up or when I have an idea of a project that they mention they're interested in, like you have your notes, you have the emails. So yeah, I have a column that's like company or the project or show, the person, the email, their role, the dates I communicated with them, the purpose, if it was for a pitch, a general networking event, who set it up, if someone, a friend of mine, introduced me, and then just notes and results. And sometimes a lot of this just like sits there, but then there's been moments where I'm like, wait a second, I've definitely met with this person before, and I control search whatever find, and then I'm like, oh, I have all the details because my brain can't hold all that information. So
Yeah, never
Google
trust your
Google
brain.
is my Google is my secretary in that sense.
Google is
Google
your
Sheets.
brain's external hard drive.
Hmm.
All right, so we've talked about a couple of different ways of thinking about setting goals and thinking about what kinds of goals you want to be thinking. So now it's time to think about, how are we going to track our progress? How are we going to remain accountable to these goals that we're setting? So within your workbook that you have, pages 8 and 9, apparently, we've got a couple of different options for you depending on what works. So we've got a tracking calendar that you can do daily, weekly, or monthly. We recommend potentially scheduling check-in emails to yourself. Gmail has made it possible for everyone to just schedule emails into the future. So why not send yourself a cute email for 3 months from now, just checking in and reminding yourself these are where you thought you should be at this point in time. How's it going? You can also block off calendar space ahead of time. This is something I think Megan and I both talked about last year, of like, when we know there's a goal that we need to do on a regular basis, already have time in your calendar blocked off. Otherwise, you'll be like, oh, well, I'm too busy. Unfortunately, I got stuff scheduled here, so I guess I'm not making progress this week, which is an easy way out that we will not allow this year.
No
Also,
way.
there are a handful of accountability apps that people use. I have never used any of these that are on the screen right now, but if you have a great productivity app or goal accountability app that you love, drop it in the comments.
Yeah. The comical thing, like this past year, I set up, I think, quarterly goals check-ins with me and my husband, and we never attended them. But like I would see one, like it was like, I think during like I can't remember what, but probably while we were like dealing with some complicated event or issue or out of town, and I would look at my phone and see that it was scheduled and just laugh and be like,
But
no.
sometimes things don't work out the way you want. Having it on the schedule is this first step,
Yeah,
perhaps, maybe.
it's the first step, and what I've learned is from these past few years of doing the goal setting workshop, what are the formats that I can really commit to, and what are I will never adapt to, like calling my family once a month. So, like I've been tweaking them and getting a better understanding of like what I need to do to set myself up for my definition of success.
Yeah. No, that's important. For me, it's like I'm a big like list person. I like checking
Hmm.
things off lists.
Same.
So the graphic that's on screen right now is one of the templates that's in your workbook. But I will sometimes print a bunch of sheets of just like a template like this, where I have whatever things I want to be doing more often in there, and then I will just check a box for every day that I do that week. So if it's like I want to be active 3 times a week, I now have like a very clear checking system for being active that week. And that's helpful for me because I'm a big like handwriting person. Like I like to write the list down physically rather than typing it. So I know that for me, that's when something will get done, when I physically write it down. But for other people, they may like having a more automated system using an app or something like that. So, the goal is not to be perfect right away. The goal is not to be 100% on everything. The goal is to figure out what works for you. What is your what are you at your most accountable, and how can we walk back to see what created those conditions? That's all we're talking about here, folks. Scheduling regular check-ins, we kind of talked about this, but yeah, every 3 months we recommend checking in with yourself. Go through each goal that you've set. Do you still care about this goal? Do you still want to see it through? It's okay if the answer is no. There's been a lot of times where I'll get to the midpoint of my year and I'm like, I don't know why I wanted to do this. This sucks. This doesn't make me happy at all. And I'm just miserable all the time because I'm not doing it, or I am doing it and I hate it. And it's not about being a completionist, it's about building a life that you want. So if you are working towards something that you don't want anymore, let it go. It's okay.
Mhm.
This is permission.
Your goal setting workbook is not a legally binding contract.
Unless that's how you prefer to remain accountable, in
Yeah.
which point it can be. Get it notarized, make it all official and fancy. Speaking of getting fancy, perhaps one way to make your regular check-in meetings with your husband more fun are to make it an event. Maybe go out for a nice dinner, dress up, or get really comfy, buy each other matching onesies. I don't know your life, Megan, but maybe you're into that sort of thing. Make your favorite meal or snack, drink your favorite drink, listen to your favorite music, set some mood lighting, basically like make it a fun thing, and then do the boring thing. Sometimes it's about tricking your brain into
Yeah.
thinking you're getting a reward when in fact you're essentially having a production meeting for your own life. But no judgments here. If that's what it gets you
Yeah.
to do it, who
I
knows?
I like the idea of, like, getting very dressed up in a ball gown to just, like, sit down and be like, "Have not done any of these things."
I mean, did you rent your wedding dress or buy it? Because you could just like have a new wedding every 6 months. So you and your husband just like
Yeah.
get dressed up in your wedding outfits and be like, so how are the finances?
I bought it, but it's at my parents' house in New Jersey since we got married up north, so my mom is probably doing that every few months.
All right. Well, disturbing family revelations aside, the other thing that you might want to do to make accountability a little bit more fun and productive is to do it with a buddy. Maybe find a friend or a coworker and share your progress, discuss your challenges, and reprioritize as it makes sense. Sometimes having somebody else to bully you is exactly
Mhm.
what you need to make progress.
So we're doing this with the rejection tracker. Two of my writer filmmaker friends, Maria, actually, who used to be an instructor for Seed&Spark, and my friend Bev, when I was talking to them about that, they're like, you know what? I want to do that. And instead of us separately doing it, I created a tracker where each of us has a tab. So like we are seeing each other's wins and losses. But I feel like that's very helpful and reminds you like you're not alone in this godforsaken industry.
And right now, that solidarity is more important than ever. I think we can all agree.
Mhm.
And also remember to use your community to stay accountable. What if maybe
Yes.
you find some people in the chat? For instance, Maiden Mars, this is not exactly related, but I saw this conversation happening a couple of minutes ago. They have an app that they recommend for keeping track of new contacts. So, like for the folks thinking about how to keep track of people and that they meet in the industry, apparently an app called Camcard might be a useful way of organizing that. So, look at that. Our community is already giving back.
Mm, I love it.
And
And
that's
we finally we got the commenters going, so that was,
I
my
know.
goal for the workshop.
And we've achieved it. 2023 is a success. We can just stop and pack it in
Yeah.
now, folks. Congratulations, everybody. But yeah,
Great
so
year.
that's the end of the official like workshop time. So now tell us, what are some goals that you've been thinking about as we've done this workshop? Do you have any questions? I did see a question that I don't have a good answer to, but I want to just call attention to. Denise asked, a little while ago. Do what do we think about hard goals versus smart goals? So have you heard of this, Megan? I just Googled it.
No,
It's a different acronym kind of
okay.
goal that apparently is used in contrast
Hard goals.
to.
Yeah, I'm Google. I got a Forbes article, so I'm already
That's what
nervous.
I'm on to. It's heartfelt, animated, required, and difficult. So we can put this article in the chat if anyone else is curious. But having not ever heard of it before, I can't really comment. But
Yeah,
maybe
it
we'll
sounds.
include it next year.
Yeah, it sounds like these are. I mean, Forbes is claiming it is more career focused. Um, I honestly think it's just a preference. I don't like when publications tell me I'm doing something wrong that like is a choice that I've made for myself. So I think it's just a preference. And it's like right side versus left side of brain. Like what is more attractive to you as a format or structure? What do you respond to more? Hard. The word hard scares me, frankly. So I want smart
Word
goals.
smart makes me feel validated.
What is that phrase? Like work smarter, not harder, or something?
Hmm. Yeah, that's what those jokers who are like passive income is my whole income stream talk about. That's like landlord psychology nonsense. I don't want anything
Mhm.
to do with that.
Uh,
Ooh,
we
question for
okay. So
Natalie.
I'm gonna go run and grab the books that I because I have a section that I have not read any of these.
Gosh, love live events. All right, Natalie, we'll come back to you. Just really quickly, I want to call out Brucers, who's feeling much better about having to submit their crowdfunding campaign to Seed&Spark, knowing it's a work in progress. I'm glad. I'm so glad to hear that. We really do try to emphasize that, like, what you send us initially does not have to be complete. In fact, it's probably better if it isn't because our feedback process is meant to be collaborative. It's meant to be a conversation between the filmmaker and us and talking about like what you're hoping for, what your challenges are, what your anxieties are, and helping and letting us help you alleviate some of those and set you up for success. So yeah, anyone who's thinking of crowdfunding with Seed&Spark, please don't feel like you need to impress us. As long as you have a cool idea and you are invested in doing the work to make it come true, we're going to be super impressed and we can't wait to work with you. All right, Natalie.
Okay, I have not read most of these, but these have been
Wow.
recommended.
So recommendations is a light
um,
description for what's
my
happening.
co-writer, the writer got screwed, but didn't have to. A friend of mine recommended this, especially like right now, I don't have representation. I don't have an entertainment lawyer. But like you get into a lot of conversations and situations either before or while you're repped. And this is a great way of like not getting screwed financially or on your work. So the writer got screwed, but didn't have to by Brooke A. Wharton. I don't get kickbacks, but she said this was really eye opening. This was recommended to me by the showrunner of Pose, Hollywood Game Plan by Carol M. Kirschner, and How to Land a Job in Film, TV, or Digital Entertainment. Cannot speak to the content, but the showrunner from Pose is successful. So he said when he was switching careers and breaking into, because he went to, he pursued film or his MFA a little bit later on after switching careers, and he said this was very helpful. And for you TV writers out there, I have read this book. As you can tell, I've used it a lot. The TV Writers Workbook has been really helpful for me in just like breaking down and understanding structure. It's a little dated. There's a lot of Everybody Loves Raymond and Desperate Housewives references in it. But in terms of structure and like learning how to like develop and beat sheet and outline and then write a a pilot, has been super helpful for me. And there is another one that I'm trying to think of. Oh, if you're looking to pursue directing, I think it's Directing for Actors. That's somewhere on my bookshelf. Also very dated. They're like, yeah, the hot new movie Titanic, or like, look at directors Woody Allen and Mel Gibson. So it's dated, but if you don't look at the references to the problematic male directors, there's a lot of great content in there for people who are learning or wanting to learn how to direct actors for the first time.
Very cool. Also, this isn't an industry recommendation, but anytime anyone asks me about like craft recommendations, I cannot recommend On Writing enough by Stephen King. It's one of the best craft books I've ever read. And like, yes, it's technically about prose, but I have used the advice and like the solidarity from that book to get me through a lot of other writing. So if you haven't read it before, highly, highly recommend. I was trying to find, I think I also have a director's book. The one that you
Hmm.
talked about, Megan, sounds familiar. I don't know if
Hmm.
that's the same one. Oh, no, I read Notes on Directing.
Mm.
Technically, this is for theater directors. However, as with most things in art, it like, transfers over.
Yeah.
It's by Frank Hauser and Russell Reich, or Reich. I don't know how to pronounce the last name, but Notes on Directing I found really, really helpful from a directing perspective.
Hmm.
If
Awesome.
anyone wants romance novel recommendations, I got you covered on that front too.
Bree,
Not
Bree
as
has
relevant
that.
here, but
If anyone wants comedy memoir book
let's just
recommendation,
chat now, guys. What are we
yeah, let's
doing
just talk
here?
about our hobbies. But yeah,
Honestly,
any last questions before we log off?
yeah, I don't see any right now. People just seem to be having a good time.
Yeah,
Um, A lot
some
of
good
love
romance.
for On Writing. Krupa
Yeah.
loves romance. Krupa, you should email me after this, and I'll send you some recommendations. I got a whole thing going.
Bird by Bird was another good. It's not industry and Lamont. It's just like a writer's book. Like it's a I can't even remember because I read it so long ago. It's a love song to the writing process.
Mm.
And Anne Lamott's detailed 12-step program for surviving the craft of writing. I love that phrase because it is definitely something you need to survive.
Oh, also Story Genius by Lisa Kron, Cron, is pretty good. I haven't finished it. I don't know if this happens to you, Megan. I get so stressed out when I read industry books or
Yes.
craft books because like the pressure of like
Yeah.
if I read this, I will be better, and if I am better, then I will have fewer excuses to fail. Like I think that's the thought
Yeah.
process. So like, how do you work against that?
I honestly, and it's like heady because I have like right now a mix of like industry books and then like mental health book coping mechanism books and then books that I'm trying to read for like topics I'm screenwriting on and then my just like fun reads.
Hmm.
So I usually that's why I start and stop so many books. Like I have to like same with TV shows, like I can't just be watching like one genre. I have to have a palate cleanser, between the like gritty drama and the like stupid comedy. So I try like if I'm not feeling good about it, I stop reading it and then revisit it when I'm in a better headspace. So not the best advice, but um like for me the TV writers workbook was so helpful because like I'd start and stop, I'd revisit. Like it was helpful because it was basically like an activity book. You can do
Okay.
exercises, whereas some books are just so overwhelming with the information and you don't get that break to do the activity and see it in action. So yeah, I try to like if I'm not feeling good about it, I stop reading it
You know what?
and
I
then
think
revisit when I'm in a good headspace.
that's a good place to go with that because like I think that a lot of things can stress us out at times, but we feel like
Yeah,
we have to like power through it when in fact maybe
yeah,
it's not the best way of doing it.
yeah. No
Uh,
one's forcing you to consume that media. Hopefully not.
yeah, I selfishly want to answer this question
Yes,
because there is a great podcast called Breaking Out of Breaking In, with
phenomenal co-host.
phenomenal co-host. There was a really cool guest last year whose name sounds familiar. Yeah, Breaking Out of Breaking In is a podcast that I co-host with former Seed&Sparker Christina Rea, who's an indie film writer director as well. Megan has been a guest on that podcast talking about her experience at the Sundance Episodic Lab, as well as her experience making a proof of concept for her pilot script. So that's a pretty good one. Pink Among Men is another good industry and women in the industry podcast. The Creative Distribution 101 podcast was really good and it has a great archive, but I think they're ending in the new year just because it was so much work, which is too bad. And then any other good industry podcasts that you can think of?
Yeah, I'm looking up mine right
The
now because
writers panel, Nerdist writers panel. They don't have as many new episodes anymore, but like their archive is incredible. Their podcast is what got me into filmmaking and TV writing. Script
um
Notes by John August and Craig
mhm,
Mazin for
that's
sure.
what everyone says. There's a DGA podcast I discovered recently. It's called The Director's Cut, and they talk to like all different types of directors, usually like sometimes two directors in a conversation. Symposium by Pipeline Media, which is one of our partners. They've started, I think, like transferring over some of their recorded conversations into podcast form, if I'm understanding correctly. But
Cool.
that's a great industry one. A lot of my friend used to have a podcast called Token Blacks in Cinema, where they basically talk about the token black character in TV and film. And yeah, sorry, I listen to a lot of like non-industry podcasts because I need that like release from all the other things I'm listening and reading and doing. So personally, I'll recommend Poog. I love that podcast. It is just ridiculous with Kate Brillant and Jacqueline Novak. Um,
I listen to a lot
but
of D&D podcasts as well. That's where I get my outside of the
really,
industry
yeah,
stuff from.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, this
it's
one's good. I was actually a guest on this podcast, The Other 50%, Women in
nice.
Hollywood. It's a good podcast. I haven't listened in a while, but I remember it being very good.
Nice, good questions.
Yeah, good questions. All right, so we're coming up to the end of this workshop. I think it's safe to say that we have just devolved into like us chatting about media that we like and workbooks to think about. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. We hope that the workshop and the workbook have been helpful to you. We wish you all the best on your various goals, be them the same ones at the end of the year as now or not. Thanks again to the Light Leaks for partnering with us on this event. Thank you to Julie, who has been our lovely technology queen in the background. And I think Frankie in the chat.
Yes,
Who
it's Frankie.
is Frankie? All right. Oh, yes, it is Frankie. Thank you, Frankie, who has been mostly manning the Seed&Spark chat when I am not harassing you guys and adding links of my own.
Yes.
Remember that. Oh,
Oh, well, no, you finish and just don't log off until I have to do the plug Julie told me to plug.
well, I was just going to say we should talk about Sundance because Seed&Spark's going to
Yes,
go to Sundance this year.
we're going to be at Sundance. We'll be in Park City for the Sundance and Slam Dance Film Festivals. You can join us from anywhere. We'll be live streaming most of our panels and register for our Innovators House on Main Street and those live stream panels at seedandspark.com/events. I will be doing one a week from Monday called Rejection as Creative Fuel. I wonder what my inspiration was, but it's going to be fun. I'm really excited to meet other filmmakers and relate and talk and be in person on the mountain.
Yeah, so sign up for the live stream at the link in the chat if you aren't able to physically go to Sundance, but if you are physically going to Sundance, which apparently Bowman Pictures is, as well as Greg P., our favorite person, Greg
Yes,
P.
Team Greg. Greg, if I don't get to shake your hand at Sundance, it will be
It'll all be a
a
wash.
failed Sundance for me.
Exactly. And also be sure to check out, as always, all of our upcoming events, be them at Sundance or beyond, at seedandspark.com/events. And
Awesome.
I think that's it. I think we're
That's
done
it.
plugging. This has been a very chaotic end of the episode.
You know what?
But
It's still better than that first year where there was an insurrection. So I
that's
call this
true.
a win.
I call it a win too. I think that 2023 is off to an awesome start. Thanks so much, everybody, and we will see you soon, hopefully.
Thanks, everyone.